Hello, this is Rolling Weights. I wear a mask because my face don't matter, and it keeps me from being able to. It keeps me to. Woo! Wearing a mask makes it safe for me to say the things I want to say without getting shot. And this channel does not exist for hits or or money or ads. The subject of this video is called "Some People Should Not Smoke Pot Like Me." Anyway, the whole point is we're entering a time when marijuana is legalized. I think it's way past time this happened. What happens when you legalize marijuana is you take the power away from drug dealers, you make it so that people don't get their lives ruined by having a small amount of pot on them, and you allow the therapeutic effects of marijuana to help cancer patients without repercussion. So I think it's way past time that pot's legalized. I mean, we've demonized it long enough. Along with that, there also needs to be a realization from anybody who is producing pot and selling pot or even growing pot on their own, it's very much in their favor to never ever allow any other drug be mixed with it or sprayed on it, or the beauty of the natural marijuana to be destroyed by some fake ass man-made chemical. Just regular old good old pot can be a life-saving and life-improving experience for the people who need it, and I'm going to get into that. So, but there are some people who should not smoke pot. Now look, there's two ways that you can, well, there's actually three ways now. You can get the THC from marijuana in you. One is smoking, which is very quick. And I'm making this video for people who have never smoked pot, and my generation who are looking at this and who are getting older and who have body pains and who are thinking, alcohol is just not working, and the aspirin's not working, and they might be thinking that maybe I want to get me a little bit of pot. Well, anyway, I'm going to tell about a lot of the effects of it. I think it's way past time it was legal, and I pray and hope that the people who handle it realize, please keep the damn chemicals away from it. So anyway, you can smoke it, you can eat it, but there's also, I believe, they have pills, I believe, with the THC in it. So anyway, there's a lot of ways you can get the effect from the pot. Real pot is a real plant, okay? Never, 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 ever smoke anything said to be just like pot. Don't do it. Don't do it. They had this crap come into the United States about 20 years ago, and it was sold in stores because it was not marijuana, and it was sprayed with chemicals, and it boasted that it was just like pot. Well, what that crap did was it fried a lot of people's brains, and I mean literally, it burnt their brains. I have several people that I know that use that and have had life-changing issues because of the damage it caused. So don't ever, never, ever. Somebody comes up and you say, hey man, this is just like pot. You say, that's fine, because you can just like smoke it over there. So don't ever, ever let somebody convince you that this is just like pot, because marijuana is marijuana is marijuana. It's a plant, it's grown. It grows old, it forms buds, it gets and leaves, and it gets harvested, it gets dried, and then it might get, the seeds might get crunched down a little bit so that you can get the seeds out, the buds, or they might sell you the bud all by itself. And the leaves are smoked, just crumbled up. They can be put into a rolled cigarette and smoked. which is the benefit of that is that as the marijuana comes down the end of the cigarette, it gets stronger. THC gets into the pot at the end of it. But you lose a lot of the pot because it comes out the end of the cigarette. Now, the other way that you can smoke it is you can smoke it in a pipe like this, and it doesn't get the same benefit of the THC going into the pot down the end. But there are pipes that have chambers in them that you can put marijuana in, and then as you're smoking, that marijuana will get more and more saturated with the THC, and then, you know, a week later, if you can stand to wait that long, you pull it out and you smoke that. And then there's also bongs, water pipes. And what you do is you put a little bit of pot into that water pipe, and you you burn the marijuana into the water, and you're holding your finger on a, they call it a shotgun. It's a little hole on the pipe, and then you fill the chamber above the water with marijuana smoke, and you let your finger off the chamber, you suck in, and it brings up the marijuana smoke into your mouth. And that's actually the most efficient way of smoking pot, but it can be painful if you get the dose wrong and you get way too much smoke in your lungs or whatever. But the bottom line is there's a lot of ways you can deliver pot into your body. The biggest problem with eating pot is that you cannot really control the amount that you ingest versus the amount of the time that it affects you. I've heard of people who ingested marijuana in cookies and brownies, and they stayed high for days. They not high, but affected for days. And if you're a person who's in a stressful employment situation, you know, you really should think about not smoking pot at all or ingesting pot at all in the first place. But, you know, there are people who are, there's actually people in the entertainment industry have talked about this on Joe Rogan's show, I think it was. And the person who used the drug said, I didn't even go to work that day. I didn't even feel right. So you got to understand that as you're exposing yourself to pot, there are many ways you can get it. And the most blessed thing about marijuana being in our society is for people who have cancer, who are taking care of chemotherapy and they have nausea. And they can use some pot to kick down the nausea, and they can, one of the things about pot is it'll fire up your appetite, and you'll want to eat the entire world. I mean, if you have a box of 12 chocolate donuts around somebody who's smoking pot, you're not going to have it for long. So anyway, it increases the appetite, reduces the nausea of cancer patients, and I think that's wonderful. I was extraordinarily sad about 10 years ago when Congress was debating this, and this was brought up in Congress and was completely ignored. I said, you know, if you're dying of cancer or you're fighting cancer, I think everything in the world should be open to you. And I think anybody who says, you can't do that because I'm uncomfortable with it, should be slapped right in their mouth. So anyway, legalizing pot can be the right thing if we do it right. Now, we've got stores that are selling it now. We've got a whole industry that's popped up, and people are making money out of it. And the good thing of that is that there's responsibility when you have manufacturers. And they're pretty loath to do things that's going to hurt their customer base. That's not like a drug dealer. Drug dealer don't care. He's going to give you the latest thing. And if he finds a way to spray it with something to make it more addictive, he's going to do that. And hopefully these stores will never do that. I can't see them ever doing that. Pot can be a calming agent. I have a good friend of mine who was extraordinarily aggressive when he was a teenager, a young teenager. And he would be in prison right now if it wasn't for pot. It's just real simple. And he went on to manage some stores and to do really well in life. But he wouldn't have done that had he not had that pot. Because what the pot did was it stomped on his aggressive tendencies. It made him mellow. He was not stupid. It didn't make him stupid. It didn't make him... he actually used it almost like a therapeutic drug. I was very impressed. To this day, I'm very impressed with this friend of mine. Pot can help people in chemotherapy fight nausea and eat, and that's just a fact. Pot in stores take away dealers' powers. So, you know, there's no thrill to looking at a federal charge from having an ounce of pot on you. There just isn't. Okay? And the people who went to jail for 10 years for an ounce bag of pot, I mean, that's just ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. Now, I could see if they were moving other drugs or something like that, but marijuana use is not the end of the world. It isn't. So we've covered the good parts about this. I mean, it can calm you down. It can, if you don't overuse it, it can actually be a calming thing. It can be something that can make your life better. I mean, the same thing is true of alcohol too. I mean, if you drink alcohol like you want to just simply calm down a little bit instead of setting a world record for how many alcohol drinks you drank that night, you know, you tend to not have a crash and burn. So, okay, unfortunately, pot does impair driving reaction. It does. It impairs driving decision making, reaction time, alertness, awareness. So, pot smoking and driving are absolutely not recommended. If you're going to spend the night smoking pot, you should spend the night where you're at. Okay? Pot stays in your body for weeks. Drug testing failed. Pot is one of the dirtiest things you could ever do to your body for a drug test, for an employer's drug test. It's absolutely easy for them to find it, and if you smoke it, and also, this is very important, if you live in a household where there are a lot of people smoking pot, you will peg on a drug test. So don't be walking into those rooms where they got the door closed and you can smell it through the door and you're like looking at the little smoke come from under the door. Don't go in that room if you got a job at drug test. Don't do it. Don't have somebody in your car riding, taking them down to the store, to the movie, smoking a doob if you're in a job that does a drug test. And actually, any federal employee needs to not do this shit, okay? I'm just telling you. I mean, you'll test positive, and then it creates a whole nightmare for you until this question of how the legality of pot's going to be addressed by employers and drug tests. And there's a problem with pot as far as a lot of pot use, depending on the kind of person you are, can slow your productivity, slow your ability to compute complex problems and do complex tasks. And we're going to get into that in a little bit. Stopping long-term pot use can take up to 6 months to return to normal before smoking pot. Now, if you've been smoking pot for years, and unfortunately, if you're smoking pot for years, you run into a what I call the pot normal situation. The pot normal situation is the same thing if you've been drinking alcohol, if you've been drinking, 12 beers every night for the last 4 or 5 years. You don't get drunk no more. That's just your normal. You can drink the beer. It's just like drinking a mineral water. And you're drunk. You will pop on a DWI. You'll pop positive for being drunk. But you won't genuinely be drunk because your body has adapted to the introduction of the beer. Now, pot is the same way in a way, because if you smoke pot, you get the THC level in the blood comes up, and it goes into the tissues in the brain too, and you get this situation where that becomes your normal. So you're smoking a pot and you're like going, why am I not getting high? And that's just because your body's gotten used to the THC, and now that is your level of normal. Is every day you're smoking a doob and you're burning one, and it's just not getting you high, and you're just like living your life like that. So you got to be aware of that. Pot can make breathing harder. Asthma sufferers, beware. This goes for anything you burn and you ingest into your lungs. The human body's not made for that. So anything you burn, cigarettes, vaping, pot. Now, I would be interested to see if there are some asthma sufferers who have used it and have found any kind of beneficial reaction to that. That would be interesting to see. I would highly doubt that, but listen, I'm not Mr. All Information. I'm just popping this out here so we can, keep talking about this and we can get informed, because information will save you your life. If you make a bad decision after you know what creates the bad situation, that's on you. But if somebody told you before, hey, this and this and this and this is going on, you get to make a decision for yourself, you might make the right decision for you and not get into bad situations. So anyway, pot can be mixed with chemicals to make the experience more powerful. Really kind of my number one peeves about street pot, because a long time ago people were really experimenting with all kinds of chemicals and shit, and they were very they just didn't give a damn. They would put anything on pot, and it created a lot of problems. Like I said, natural marijuana is natural marijuana is natural marijuana. It does not need to have crap put into it. Now, if it's a poor quality marijuana, then they need to grind it up and put it into dog food, But, there's stuff called homegrown. We used to call it homegrown. And then there was, other things. There was, blonde and green and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, natural marijuana is what the subject of this video is about. Anything that purports to be just like pot is fucking trash. Anything that is sprayed on pot, the person needs to go to jail for life. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I mean, you make the decision for you. My decision for me is that I cannot do it because it will turn me into an idiot. It really will. I won't be able to put, 1 and 1 is a half if I was smoking pot. But my friend who smoked it, it saved his freedom. I was amazed at that. And he was talking just like I was, and he was actually excelling at life. So, like I said, some people should not smoke pot, and some people will do fine on it. But I would also ask that anybody who's smoking marijuana, please be careful where you smoke it. Don't be casual about how you smoke that pot, because children don't need to be exposed to the smoke, and people who live in who work for the federal government don't need to be exposed to that smoke, and anybody who works for an employer that does drug tests does not need to be exposed to that smoke. So, have your doob, enjoy your doob, and get your Uber back from your friend's house if you decide to get high. Don't drive, because it's driving while intoxicated, or it's either driving while intoxicated or driving while under the influence. Both of those are extraordinarily vicious offensives to go through. So don't do that to yourself. Don't demonize real normal marijuana, because it's not the evil dragon that people like to say. Yes, people have in the past tried to put drugs with it, as far as they've treated it with stuff, and the street dealers who used to push it also pushed other things. And that's the good thing, is that people who have a hard store, they're not going to tolerate that